Welcome to MyCare Network. I'm Aoife and I'm joined with Joanne Hewitt, the CEO of Achieve Australia today. Welcome to MyCare Network, Joanne. How are you?
Thanks, Aoife. I'm really well. Thanks for inviting me here.
You are very welcome. We're very honoured to have you here today. I would like to start off with a very important question. Reason being is I know that you hold a very important position and a role in Achieve Australia. What inspired you to choose this path in your career?
Look, great question. I've had a long career in community services in general and more specifically working with people with disability. I guess, I was inspired really to start working with people with disability because I grew up in a family where my mum had a disability. She had a physical disability. And the thing for me was that I never really noticed that. I grew up with her doing all the things that everybody else did. She just did it in a different way. She was an amputee who required, some particular tools to do things. She did things like plaited my hair with her mouth and her one hand. She knitted, with in a different way to what other people did. She sewed, she rode a push bike, did all those things. And so as a child growing up, I got used to the fact that people with disabilities could do things that everybody else could do. They just needed to perhaps overcome some of the barriers. And some of the things that I saw her face were, the social barriers, I guess. People assuming that she couldn't actually do things, assuming that as a child I should be doing things for her that she was quite capable of doing.
Exactly.
And that was quite confronting to me. And so as I grew up, I decided to have a career in disability so that I could make sure that people with disability got to live the lives that they deserved as part of our community. Exactly. And actually, fight towards overcoming some of the barriers that people with disability face.
Wow, it's very breathtaking this explains the success. This explains the passion that you have for your role. Because there is a lot of people that are passionate of this, like the disability and all sorts of health, or there's a lot of mental health issues out there as well. But with you, Joanne, there's something different. There's the way you present yourself, the way you hold your position, and the way you, like I said, the person that you are and the way you do things is very special, and I think that's where it comes from because you've experienced it and you've lived it. And it's very unfortunate. I believe that a lot of, like your mother, people with disability actually do most things better than what we do.
Well, we know that disability is often about social barriers.
Yes.
Certainly people with disability, and it can be a range of disabilities, have to overcome things like pain, things like, confusion about the way the world works. It depends on what the disability is. But the greatest barrier for people with disabilities is people's attitudes.
Yep.
So, as I said before, making assumptions about what you can and can't do as a person with a disability, or making assumptions about what you might want or need and other people speaking for you. And so I guess that, has driven me in my role to actually think about how, no matter what the person's disability is, how we can actually use their strengths and support them to live a good life.
Joanne, I would assume, as we all know, Achieve Australia is celebrating a milestone, 70 years. What do you how's your feelings about that? It's an amazing, 70 years, it's a big and long achievement. What is the achievement behind, and what is the success behind Achieve Australia? What's brought Achieve Australia to be so successful? And like I said, 70 years is a big wow for me, and I'm sure for a lot of people. Just something that, I know that you've started with Achieve Australia in 2019 as a CEO. If I'm not wrong.
Yes, that's right.
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. So what is a success? What's brought Achieve Australia to what it is today?
Yeah, look, I guess 70 years is a huge milestone, and if I look back on those 70 years, Achieve Australia was started, as many organisations that are in the disability sector were started by families and community members who really wanted to see a change in the world around how people with disability were treated. So those family members would have experienced their children being shut out of regular schools, being shut out of community life, would have often experienced doctors telling them to put their children in institutions. And so in the 1940s and 50s, people were starting to kick back on that and saying, you know, that's not okay. We want our children to stay in our family home. We want our children to attend school, to have meaningful employment.
Yeah.
So, you know, a group of fantastic families actually got together and started Achieve Australia. And I think did a fantastic thing for their children, but for generations to come.
Yeah.
So 70 years later, I don't think they could have conceptualised that we would now have an organisation that touches the lives of thousands of people rather than just a handful that they were dealing with at that stage. And that really the things that they were doing, which was ensuring that, albeit that, you know, that the kids were living in segregated environments and going to segregated schools, and these days we don't want people to be in segregated environments,
definitely.
but that's just a change in social norms. So in fact, Achieve has always been at the forefront of innovation. So that was innovative in its day. We were certainly one of the first organisations in the country to close down our more institutional environment, and rather than just build group homes for people, we actually built apartments that are inclusive apartments. So there's 400 apartments in the block, people living there from all walks of life, and some of them just happen to be people with disabilities. So they're living amongst other people, enjoying a really independent and fruitful life in their own community. So we've always done things that actually were the next level.
The way they deserve to live.
Absolutely, yeah.
Who do you call when your place needs a clean, when your garden's a mess, or you need home modifications? Neat Pro Services is who you call. We offer quality services for your cleaning needs, pest control, gardening, home maintenance, and even home modifications. One call and we'll fix it all. So head to our Neat Pro Services website for more information, or give us a call and like us on Facebook to stay up to date. Because at Neat Pro, we're not just about service, we're about your satisfaction.
Can you just maybe go through like the services that Achieve Australia actually offers to the
For
community?
sure. So we have a range of services for people with disability and for people with a wide range of disabilities. Our primary service delivery offer is around housing and support for people with disability. So we operate a number of houses and apartments, as well as support to live in people's own homes. So really that's providing care and support, whatever that looks like, opportunities for to meet their own goals. So it might range from personal care to assisting with accessing the community, learning new skills, particularly, access to healthcare and making sure that people are well.
Yep.
And we do know that people with complex disabilities are often find it really difficult to access appropriate healthcare. So making sure that there's that balance between really good quality of care and good quality of life.
Yes.
We also have a range of community participation services, so providing people with the opportunity to learn new skills in the community, young people to learn about travelling and cooking and being independent. We also have a couple of social enterprises. So we in particular have a social enterprise that employs people with disability and other people to provide packaging services, and really as an entry into employment. So many of those people actually go and then work in open employment once they've had the experience of working in that
So you actually
service.
get them job ready as well.
Absolutely.
For employment. Amazing.
And one of the very exciting things and very unique things that we do is we have a small social enterprise called the Sewing Basket, which are at the moment 4 stores around Sydney and the Central Coast.
Yeah.
We employ people with disabilities. We also employ a large number of volunteers for the community, so people get a chance to actually work with us and for us. And we sell really good quality fabric and yarn and everything sort of sewing and craft. Yeah. It's really popular. We have a huge following, not just people who come into the store, but people who follow us on social media. And I guess the great thing about the Sewing Basket is, people can get pretty cheap deals, because we get a lot of donations in order to get our stock. And we also, of course, have lots of people who volunteer their time to actually work there. So people can actually get some, really cheap craft goods. But the most important thing, of course, is that they see that people with disabilities are employed and getting a great employment experience. And all the proceeds go back to supporting people at Achieve Australia. So it's really, turning that sort of circle of the virtuous circle, I guess, of recycling, as well as tapping into people's volunteering, to people's commitment around volunteering, providing gainful employment for people with disability, and actually then providing profits back to them to support people with disability.
Wow, that's amazing. Throughout your career in disability, what are the biggest challenges that you've faced?
Yeah, look, I guess, it's an interesting time because we've had the introduction of the National Disability Insurance Scheme, which is fantastic. It's probably the biggest reform that we've had since Medicare in the country, and really promises to ensure that people with disability actually have the support that they need to live a pretty normal life, to have choice and control over the services that they have, not be captured by a service system, but actually be able to choose, whether or not they need to go to a therapist, or whether they, want a support worker or whatever their needs are. I guess a challenge with that is that we need to make sure that it remains really a good economic proposition. And I know there's been a lot of discussion in the media and in the community about how much it costs. When the Productivity Commission recommended the National Disability Insurance Scheme, they actually proved that for every dollar spent in the scheme, the economy got $2 back. Because it not only provides people with disability the support they need, it also means that if they get the right support at the right time, they actually need less support over time.
Exactly.
It also means that people with disability can get jobs where that's appropriate and they're able to, that they actually can get jobs and work in the community and actually give back to the taxpayer, and that families where they have a person with a disability are enabled to actually take their place in the workforce also and become taxpayers. Right. I know in my career I've met many people who've had to give up work because the challenge of caring for someone with a disability and ensuring that they got the right support has meant that they haven't been able to work themselves. Whereas for the small output of providing, whether that's support workers to assist or whatever is required, means that the carer can actually go to work and resume their career and actually become a taxpayer.
And have a little bit of a break.
Absolutely. So I think that's one of the things we've missed is not just the fact that people with disability deserve the right care and support, but in fact it's good for the economy. And we need to just keep making sure that we're being really efficient and effective about how the NDIS is administered, but also that we keep our eye on the prize around how good this is for our economy. I think that's one of the big macro challenges. I guess from a service delivery perspective, the most challenging things, it's certainly of recent years around the operating a disability service. COVID naturally has been an incredibly challenging thing for everybody. It's been challenging for the entire community. But we know that people with disabilities have been particularly vulnerable. Often people with disabilities have underlying health conditions. And so ensuring that, they're safe. People with disabilities have been overrepresented in hospitalisations and death around the world. And so, we've needed to make sure that the people that we support actually continue to be safe and well. The people that are supporting them are, fully vaccinated so they can keep everybody safe and well. But at the same time that we're not locking people down for too long, because people with disability, as well as people who are aged and other people with more vulnerable conditions, have certainly had it tougher than the rest of us in terms of being locked down longer, having to isolate from the community. Even now, when COVID's become so much more a part of our daily lives and we're getting on with things, for people with any level of health vulnerability due to age or disability, they're still having to be super, super cautious.
Yeah.
So that's certainly been challenging. I think we've done incredibly well to make sure that people are both safe and well, and also still participating, still having fun, still getting out and about. But no doubt that's been a challenge. And going with that, of course, is the whole issue of workforce. So workforce is we obviously rely on, it's a human services organisation, so we rely on people to actually support people. It's not something that can be done by a robot or by bringing somebody in who's just going to do a short, sharp piece of work. We need people who are working with the people we support. Reliable, also, develop a relationship, a caring relationship over time. So our workforce is critical. With the onset of COVID, of course, that meant that that we didn't have the same access to the same amount of people, because lots of people were staying at home because they, and particularly going into a care environment was much tougher. Yeah. People had to work most of their hours in PPE from head to foot. And you know how hard it is when you just have to sit in a taxi with a mask on.
Just a simple mask.
That's right. So to actually work all day dressed in PPE and to actually do things like provide personal care, which is quite a physical job, dressed in your PPE is quite tough. I admire my staff so much who just turned up day after day, and despite at the beginning, fears that they could be impacted themselves or their family could be impacted themselves, still turned up, still did their job, still were incredibly passionate about the work they did. But trying to attract new people into the roles was much more difficult. The fact that all people from overseas often went home during the pandemic. And so therefore there were less people in the workforce. And now, of course, as COVID has started to change in its nature, and we've started to live with COVID, we've got the challenge of people are tired. And so, we have seen an uptick across the sector of people leaving the profession, leaving the caring profession, and that's been well publicised. Yeah. So ensuring that, we retain our valued staff, but also, we make sure that people really understand what a great job it is.
Definitely rewarding.
That's right. Young people often don't think about going into the caring profession as something they want to do. They think about what they want to do as a career, and unless, like me, they've had a family experience that actually said, okay, this is something I can be really passionate about and have a fantastic, and I've had a fantastic career.
I think making a change.
I mean, I run a big business, so it's not as if that's all I do. I'm not providing the day-to-day support. But, I run a big business, but I do that with that real sense of purpose. And it means that you're not just doing a job.
Exactly.
You don't feel like you're doing a job. You're doing it because it's something that you really love and something that you really enjoy every single day of your life.
And there's a positive outcome. Like, you're actually doing something. Yes, you're going to work.
Yeah.
It is a job, but in the end, when you look back, it's not, because you've actually saved a life, or you've helped someone, you've put a smile on someone's face.
And you're part of somebody's life.
That's right, you're part of someone's life.
Yeah, and I think often when people are considering careers, I often say to young people, particularly young people at university, and I say, just need to think about this as one of your options, because whether it's in disability or whether it's in another kind of caring profession, the impact on you. Sure, it can be tough work from time to time, but, so is standing in a shop trying to serve, or in a bar or whatever, but you don't get the same rewards from those kind of professions.
The same satisfaction.
Absolutely. So workforce, I think, is probably our biggest challenge at the moment, is, as I said, both retaining the valued staff that we have and keeping people, really focused and motivated in an environment where everybody's tired after COVID. Yeah. But in particular, where it is the biggest growing sector in the economy. The NDIS has ensured that there is a need for many, many more people, whether it's registered nurses, support workers, anybody working in the caring profession. It's got a great career structure, And so making sure that we actually can tap into those people who are thinking about what to do either at the beginning of their career or at a career change.
Yeah,
definitely. Is tapping into those people and convincing them that it's a great place to work.
And I hope that this video and this interview does convince them.
Absolutely, yeah. That's really important.
Okay, Joanne. Is there anything else that you would like to share with us regarding either yourself or Achieve Australia?
Yeah, look, I think, I'd certainly... I started off talking about the amazing work that Achieve Australia has done over the years, and I've only been there for 3 years, so I can't take credit for the entire 70 years of successes there. But, some of the things that we're doing is not just about providing those day-to-day services, the care and support. That's incredibly important work. But the things I'm most excited about is that we want to make a difference, not just to the people we support. We absolutely want to do that. That's what drives us. But we actually want to make a difference to people with disabilities in general. That's why I get up in the morning. So we've started off a foundation, the Achieve Foundation. And that foundation, we have a 10-year plan around changing attitudes of people with in Australia around people with disability. So that's a pretty ambitious target. But, I know that I've got the right team in place. We know that we've got the rest of the sector. We've got people with disabilities who are really buying into this proposition and really supporting that and promoting really innovative ways of supporting people in housing, in employment. We know that people with disabilities are locked out of the workforce. There's a huge percentage of people with disability that are unemployed, that could be gainfully employed, that, want to work, that can actually offer commitment, skill, incredible things to a workplace. But what stops that is people's fear, people's unknown. They think, if I employ a person with a disability, am I going to have to provide them with more support? Am I going to actually get them? Are they going to be productive? Some of those things, if you actually work out with the person in advance what they need, they can be more productive. They're more likely to turn up for work.
Right.
There's good statistics around that. So I think that's one of the really exciting things. We've also started in a joint venture a housing company called Inclusive Housing Australia. So we work with another for-profit partner. And we actually are building a fund to provide more contemporary housing for people with disabilities across Australia, not just Achieve clients, but ensuring that we've got a range of housing options for people with disability, whether that's living alone independently, living with other friends or living with their family, but they actually have the housing that they need in the locations that they need. So I think some of those things I'm incredibly excited about. And also we're I think increasing much more how people with disabilities are involved in co-design of those services. So ensuring that people with disabilities actually have a voice in that they're the ones who are in control. I've got some great ideas,
Definitely.
but I've only got my own ideas, and based on what I know, not as a person with lived experience. And so it's really important for me to be surrounded by people who have that lived experience, who can talk about what it is they want, what it is they need, what it is they aspire to.
Okay, Joanne, I would like to thank you for joining us at MyCare Network. It was an honour to have you here today. I hope Joanne's story has inspired a lot of you. Don't forget to subscribe to our social media platforms. Thank you again, Joanne, and it was a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you.